everyone, Sycra here. I just wanted to show you a behind the scenes look of how I do some of those speed sketches that I've been posting recently. The first thing is, a few people have actually commented about the paper I use. This is a paper texture I created myself by overlaying a lot of different photos of paper. And you can download it at www.sycra.net/freepapertexture.jpg or JPG. So that's there for you. And then I have that and I create a layer above that. And I save that as a PSD file. This is just called paper texture template. And now what I've been doing recently is I've been using a brush, and it's the same 24 pixel spatter brush that I always use, which is right here. But instead of just having other dynamics checked to pen pressure, what I've started to do is also check this box called color dynamics. Now, if you're having trouble seeing any of these little boxes, I'd recommend to watch this in full screen and HD, and then you'll probably be able to see a bit better some of these small windows and things. But anyway, so I just checked this box. I haven't screwed around with anything here. That's all pretty much default. But then what I do is I select a color for my brush, and somewhere in this area, like a red, orange, maybe a bit more to the orange side. And then I select a second color, which is darker and more to the red side and more saturated. So the colors are in this lower right corner, and that means they're going to be pretty dark and pretty saturated. So again, it's the 24 pixel spatter brush with other dynamics set to pen pressure and color dynamics on. So then here I go. I have my layer 1, and this is the only layer I paint on. The thing is that sometimes you'll see me quickly erase the whole drawing. Like I'll start drawing, and then I'll just erase it by hitting delete. What I do is I start off by pressing Control A, and that selects the whole canvas, and then I press Control H to hide that. So now what that means is this whole thing's selected, and since I'm on this layer, all I have to do is hit delete and everything disappears. This is automatic in a program called Autodesk Sketchbook Pro, where you just create new layers and you can draw, then just hit delete, everything disappears. But in Photoshop, it's not set up that way. If I didn't have this selected, Control D, and I drew something and then I hit delete, nothing's going to happen. So what I have to do is hit Control A for select all, and then I hit Control H, which is hide, and that just hides the selection, so I don't have to see that the marching ants. And then I draw. Now, something that's happening here is that, and this tends to happen a lot, especially when I use Camtasia to record, is that the pressure sensitivity option disappears. So all I have to do is restart Photoshop, and usually that solves it. Yeah, so now it's working. Just have to make sure I'm on the right layer. Then Control A, Control H. And now you'll notice with the color dynamics option on, is that if I press lightly or press hard, the color actually changes a little bit. It's pretty subtle, but it does make a bit of a difference. For me, I just want to get the most natural pencil type feel. And I usually work at about 10 pixels. So this is what the line looks like. I like it. And what else? Here's another thing. See, I'm using, I think, a 24-inch monitor. So my paper texture is really big. And if you download it, you'll find that out, that it's really big. So on my screen right now, the paper fits at 25%. And if I go to the next zoom level up, which is 33%, then my brush is going to look a bit different. You see, it's kind of grainy. I find that when things are at 25%, 50%, or 100%, they look the best. When you have your zoom set to 33% or 66%, things don't look so good. So I'd recommend try and keep things at about 25 or 50% if possible. The reason you want it so big is just because when you have such a big screen, the brushes will behave much differently than if you had a small document. And I've already gone over this in my previous video about my Photoshop brush settings. Now, something else is that I often get asked about the brushes, and I've explained it a lot, that it's this 24 pixel spatter brush. But I know there's a lot of other brushes out there, and I do have a lot of custom brushes that I actually never use. But if you're interested in that, and you want to know, where can I get some cool brushes? Well, there's a site called www.pandemoniumart.net and /brushes. And then there's a section here that has really good brushes. And they're by awesome guys like Barantieri and Jamie Jones. If you don't know Jamie Jones, this guy is probably, he's a hero of mine. He's like an artist that the pros are like, wow, he's awesome. So yeah, you should check out his work at www.artpad.org. But he's an awesome artist, and yeah, this is cool that pandemoniumart.net put out these brushes. And actually, if you Google search for brushes, you'll probably find a lot of resources available to you. But the reason I like pandemonium.net or pandemoniumart.net's brushes is because they have brushes of artists that I really respect and admire. So that's cool. And then what else? Let me talk a bit about the scribbling. So really, when I start, I am just scribbling, and I'm just getting my hand to move. And I don't know if you may have read a book by Betty Edwards called Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain. But it talks about this idea that you have the right side of the brain that tends to take over more creative tasks, and you have the left side of the brain, and the left side is more rational and logical. It's involved in things like language and math, and the right side is involved in things like art and music and dreaming. So I'm trying to use more of my right side of the brain and really turn off that left side. Because the left side, what that wants to do is say, okay, I'm going to draw a head. And then it'll think, okay, what view? Maybe I'll start with a circle. Get my guides down. My eyes go this area. Get my nose, mouth. And that's my left side thinking how I draw a head. Now, the right side Well, I don't really think it thinks about drawing ahead. Maybe it does. I don't know. But if I was using my right side, I would just let things happen and see shapes. And see, I started out with, I don't know, kind of like this shape. What do you call that? Like a bean shape, I guess. And I was just scribbling. And then I place the eye sockets, and then maybe a nose would go here. Like, I'm really just looking at these scribbles and trying to find things, and I'm letting my arm do whatever it wants. And I'm hoping that whatever that is turns into something. So now this is turning into a face, and honestly, I think this is more interesting than when I started out with the traditional approach, which isn't bad. I mean, I recommend this, and I still think you can't do this scribbly stuff unless you have a knowledge base. If you're just working from no knowledge and you haven't been drawing for a while, then I'm not sure how you would go about creating an image like this, because I don't know, maybe it's possible. I mean, when you think about it, when you dream, you're creating images of people, and the color's perfect, the values are perfect, the proportions are perfect. So obviously your brain can create images from nothing that look entirely convincing. And part of my struggle has really been, okay, I understand that my brain is capable of doing these things. For instance, also when you think about someone and you might get a brief snapshot of their image in your mind. Well, that was created, right? It was created from your brain. It's not just coming out of nowhere. And I used to do things like I would just imagine people or imagine faces and try and draw them. And I would even imagine things like a cup, and I'd try and rotate that in my head so I could see the different views. And honestly, in the beginning, it just didn't work. And I would wonder, how come this doesn't work? How come I know my brain can do this, but it's just not, it's not cooperating. But as I drew more and more, then eventually I got to the point that I could close my eyes and visualize an object like a cup, for instance, and I could spin it around in my head and see all the different views. That gets more complicated when you're dealing with things like a face, but still, it's something that is possible, and somehow drawing a lot seems to unlock some of these abilities. And I think everyone can do this. It just requires a lot of time. And this is something I guess I should talk about as well, because really when people talk about brushes and they're like, oh, what brush are you using? Or what's that paper texture? Often they want the secret. They want the secret answer that's going to help them suddenly improve a lot and become an awesome artist. And there are things that can help. For instance, learning proportions, learning anatomy, that for sure helps. Even things like this, okay, using a paper texture, sticking to percentages in Photoshop like 25%, 50%, this all helps. But if you're not drawing all the time, then it's not going to help you that much. It's not going to magically make you a better artist. And usually everything you want to know when you look at tutorials, and it's like the things you're hoping for, that I hope this helps me. I hope this helps me improve. Often that's something that usually it's just years and years of practice, and then you do get whatever you want to get, such as understanding values, or being able to be good with color, or creating dynamic compositions. Really just takes years and years of practice, and there's no way around this. But there are things that can help you, especially with painting. I was so afraid of painting for such a long time. I would stick with pencils and things. So whenever I moved to color, my immediate my first choice was always colored pencils, because it's like, well, that's like a pencil. It's basically just shading in, and that's something I was used to. Then I would draw something and then find a color. See, I'm not even coloring in the lines. But yeah, that's what I was used to. And then when I wanted to move further, I went from colored pencils to oil pastels. And other pastels, I felt comfortable with those, because it's like, well, this is kind of like paint, I guess, but it's a dry medium. It's something I'm more comfortable with. Really, I think oil painting and colored pastels to color, it's harder. It's not that easy. Something you want to get used to doing is getting over your fears of trying new things and trying things that are kind of scary, because you're not used to them at first. But remember that it just takes practice. It might take a lot of practice, but it does take, really, it's just practice. And same with the Wacom. I hate calling it that. I like to call it Wacom, but yeah, I've heard the people from the company call it Wacom, so yeah. Wacom tablets, the thing with them is, again, it's just practice. It's not that buying a tablet is instantly going to make you a better artist. It's not. If anything, it might make things more difficult in some respects, and just drawing with a pencil and paper is really what's going to help you. So pretty much that's mostly what I wanted to talk about, and I think I've explained how I go about these things, right? Scribble. See, when I'm mad, I tend to do more more straight lines, more angry strokes. I get more triangle shapes. Anyway, yeah, I wanted to talk about one more thing, which is the classes. I offered a survey to gauge people's interest in taking private lessons with me. Now, just to update you on that, the company that I was planning to work with, and I'm still planning to work with them, but the screen sharing function isn't, right now it's not working, so I've been told around January it will be ready, but that's really what I'm waiting on right now, is that screen sharing, because from the results of the survey, the majority of people wanted to take digital lessons with me, not traditional, and so I figured that I would probably be the most helpful if I just had screen sharing, where they would see me drawing just like this on Photoshop, and I could bring in the work the students created and draw over that, and it would just be a lot more convenient than if I were drawing this traditionally and I set up a camera and then my hand would be in the way or something like this. So I probably would, if this does work out with the lessons, I would be offering lessons that are digital, and your drawing doesn't have to be digital, it just has to be somehow in the computer, so maybe you can scan it or take a photo of it. But yeah, that's pretty much where it's headed, and now I'm just waiting for the screen sharing capability to be there in the site. So that's that. I've got some other projects I'm working on, but I will tell you about those later. But I hope this gave you a bit of insight into how I go about doing these speed sketches, and I have this feeling that people will never believe me that I just start scribbling and finding shapes within that. I think the shapes you find really go, what am I trying to say? It really depends on what you draw a lot, because you'll see different shapes, and it's just like people looking in clouds or at a Rorschach ink blot, right? You see different things, and often what you see is a reflection of what is within you anyway. So I guess that in a way I am not just scribbling randomly, because there's some part of my brain that must be trying to express itself. And so yeah, I guess it's not completely random, but as far as what I'm conscious of, I really don't know where things are going. I'm just looking for things and then creating random stuff and finding stuff within that. Alright, so I hope that explains things, and thanks for watching.